my topic is political entrepreneurship, citizens that found new political parties all over Europe to enter parliaments and change political systems from within. We actually can see a wave, a surge of that phenomenon over the last years. More than 100 parties have been founded since the last European elections, and you can see it in countries like Slovakia, like Romania, like Spain, like Austria. In many places there are new political parties in the center, and they're trying to fight the populist surge, because many very successful political entrepreneurs, as I call them, of late have been populists, nationalists, extremists. So the new players in the political center try to fight those, and also try to re-innovate and reinvigorate the political center all over Europe. So I've interviewed 7 parties all over Europe, and I've spoken to party leadership as well as activists, and together with them I developed a framework, a roadmap, how political startups develop. It starts with understanding, first of all, understanding the political landscape, understanding what you need, what are the requirements in terms of signatures, in terms of financial resources to actually be competitive. So you need to understand the political system in depth first. The second one is that you need to envision a new political system, new policy landscape, a different kind of state, a different relation between citizens and the state. So you need to envision that and write it down, and ideally co-develop that with citizens and with accomplices. The third stage then is, once you understand and once you envision, you need to start to build. You need to start to build an organization, you need to start to build a brand, you need to start building a policy manifesto. You don't need to have all policies mapped out, but you need your core policies written down. Once you understand and envision and build, of course, then comes the time you need to run your party in a political election. So you need to compete on the national, local, European level, on whatever level, but you need to compete. And ideally, of course, when you run, then you enter. So once you're in, you need to realign the party, because of course, if you have, for example, if you have a parliamentary group, that changes the whole dynamic of the organization. So you need to realign, you need to readjust, you need to refocus, because all those processes take a lot of resources. You need to refocus on the citizens and engage with them. You need to refocus on your members. And once you've done that, you need to scale. You need to grow your organization on all levels, from the local to the European. And of course, then at some point you need to re-enter parliament, of course, ideally also enter parliaments and governments, because many startups actually fail in the first period. About half of them don't make it through the first period. And once you have re-entered, of course, then you need to start to generate an ecosystem, as I call it, so that you start building political change on a broader basis by having alumni who go into other positions all over the world, all over Europe, all over your nation state, and start changing the system from those different positions. So you create a much bigger force than the political startup is. That would be all of the steps of a political startup. Many people will say, if you start a new party, that this is actually impossible. That's what we've also heard when we started NEOS back in the day. People said, you will never be able to get off the ground. You don't have the resources, you don't have the people, you don't have the profile. Without celebrities, you're done. All of that, and you must not listen to that, because actually it is possible and you can make a change. Not all parties will succeed. Most political startups fail, and not all political startups will make it into government, but that doesn't matter, because one direction of change, one push is that political startups force other political players also to change themselves and innovate themselves. And that's also very important democratic impact in the positive sense that political startups have. So NEOS, which I helped set up starting in 2012, was really started by a couple of people, and they then called a few friends of theirs, and we then were a group of 40 people, and we got together for a retreat for a couple of days and started to discuss what we wanted to do, and if we would found something like a political party, how would it look like, what policies would it have, what values would it have. And so we met on a basis of 5 to 6 weeks regularly, got together, and the group grew. So we started with 40, then we were 100, 150, and about 8 months later we founded this party officially, and 1 year later, so 1.5 years after the founding, we actually got into parliament. So that shows that you can start with pretty much nothing. We didn't have any financial resources. We were just a small group of people. Of course, it's important that those people are really passionate about politics, that they know their way around. You need a diverse group, you need people who are good with finances, you need people who are good with communication, you need people who are good with organization. So you have to have a certain diverse set of skills, but once you have that professionalism in the group and at the same time a high amount of idealism, that combination I think is very, very powerful. So I think Eastern Europe and Southern Eastern Europe is really interesting at the moment. There's a lot of political entrepreneurship going on. If you look at Hungary, for example, with Momentum, if you look at Slovakia with Progressivne, if you look at Romania with Plus in USR. So there are many, many parties that are quite successful, even though, of course, the landscape in Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe and the challenges are often bigger. So of course you have sometimes really, really powerful opponents. And also you might have the media against you because it somehow is related to the political system. So it's really tough. But still, I think those examples show that you actually can make it. And you need to be creative, you need to be bold. If you look at, for example, Momentum, the way they raised their flag in the political landscape with this campaign and petition against the back then Olympic application of Orban and Fidesz, and how they beat him as a small group of young people who were standing on the streets in winter and collecting signatures from people who didn't want this Olympia to happen in Budapest. I think that shows that you don't have to have a big apparatus or a big machine behind you, and that you actually can make important points early on, so that people actually start to have you on their radar and start to recognize you, and pollsters get them into their polls. All of that is really important, and you can do that with lots of creativity and boldness. So I think what's next for political entrepreneurship is that what we need and what political startups need is more structural support, like startups in the business world, but now also in the social enterprise world. They now get support, for example, by incubators, by accelerators, and so therefore they have programs to help them in the early stage, give them advice, coach them, give them expertise. I think that's really important when you don't know what you're doing exactly. And I think what's going to be the future, and what also Friedrich-Naumann Foundation and we are thinking about, is how we could build such an institution in the coming years and help political entrepreneurs to get their political startup off the ground. I think that is the future.